Yeah, what I say? I told you they ain't got no love for you, anything come on with you. What I say? I told you there wasn't no real niggas, now you gotta deal with them. What I say? I told you she ain't got no love for you, she don't really fuck with you. What I say? I told you take care of your fam, stand on your square, be a man. What I say? I told you they ain't got no love for you, anything come on with you. What I say? I told you there wasn't no real niggas, now you gotta deal with them. What I say? I told you she ain't got no love for you, she don't really fuck with you. What I say? I told you take care of your fam, stand on your square, be a man. A cold world, I know. Time moves fast when you tryna chase a bag, that's facts. At last, niggas finally see your check. Haters wanna knock you off your apex. They mad, cause your bitch ain't loyal. Broke the code, put a price on her soul. Get a hold of your life. You could blow off at night, or you could fuck it all and lose control. Suicide is a suicide, yeah. It's a big difference between you and I. And I'm super straight. They say you 6 million ways to die. Choose your fate. I ain't gonna lose the case. Prove your worth, nigga. Move your way. Keep your nose clean for you lose your face. What up your face value? We don't know your face. I step up in this bitch like I own the place. I pay close attention to they tone and pace. Is he really real? Will he phone a break? Life is guns and water, baby boy, you straight. And I got it in either hand, I mean I hold your fate. Never know, it could be your time to go today. Who knows, a nigga like me might show you the way. Seal his fate with a kiss from a rose on the grave. I stand on anything I say, what I say. What I say? I told you they ain't got no love for you, anything come on with you. What I say? I told you there was no real niggas, now you gotta deal with them. What I say? I told you she ain't got no love for you, she don't really fuck with you. What I say? I told you take care of your fam, stand on your square, be a man. What I say? I told you they ain't got no love for you, anything come on with you. What I say? I told you there wasn't no real niggas, now you gotta deal with them. What I say? I told you she ain't got no love for you, she don't really fuck with you. What I say? I told you take care of your fam, stand on your square, be a man. My nigga Low just came home from doing A. Fucking with the wrong niggas in the wrong place. The one you call ace, that be all up in your face. Next minute fuck around, help the law build your case. In this rap run, you gotta be a dog in this race. Loyalty or death, man, that's all that it takes. I go all the way, you niggas fall by the waist. I see we was never cool, it was all for the ranks. And furthermore, keys open doors. I can never sit and watch my niggas jump overboard. It's over for you snake niggas and I'm the overlord. I know you niggas to the core. Before you hit record, never give a man a sword if he ain't built for war. I see hate galore, not just love the law. It motivates me more, keep a nigga going forward. Life come with bullshit and the nigga is all for it. I ain't knocking your hustle, but it's money over horse. I gotta feed fam, you gotta feed yours. On this path less chosen, ain't no room for detours. Just earn your keep and keep yours. Let be and be more, but be sure you ready, cause this shit ain't never finna be the same like it was before. You know what they say about when it rains for sure. The game is pure through my veins and pores. What I say? test. And you know how I'm coming, I ain't ducking nothing. You know when I pull up on your block, it's bustin'. You know how I'm coming, and you came with me. You know what's going, stop playing with me. I want all the smoke, nigga, cut the shit you think bad enough to test. And you know how I'm coming, I ain't ducking nothing. You know when I pull up on your block, it's bustin'. You know how I'm coming, and you came with me, gang. You know what's going, stop playing with me. Real gangsters move critically when this shit get critical. No peace amongst enemies, no pity for the pitiful. Real nigga down to the bones and the minerals. Stick to the G code, I never told another soul. True to the literature, now salute the general. Kill you on your birthday, then slide on your funeral. It ain't about the clout chase, I'm a man of principle. Niggas out of body, now they body isn't critical. Cradle to the casket, the life we live is typical. God body, cause I will depart you from your physical. Niggas live in fantasies, act like they was the only one. Don't talk to me about these streets. Fuck you think you know me from? Just cause you related to them gangsters, that don't make you one. I ain't got no bloodline in these streets, but I could spill me some. I ain't got no mercy for this bitch, and she outside with us. They on demon time, we bring them hell and the fire with us. All this smoke, nigga, cut the shit you think you bad enough to test. You know how I'm coming, I ain't ducking nothing. You know when I pull up on your block, it's bustin'. You know how I'm coming, and you came with me. You know what's going, stop playing with me. I want all the smoke, nigga, cut the shit you think you bad enough to test. And you know how I'm coming, I ain't ducking nothing. You know when I pull up on your block, it's bustin'. You know how I'm coming, and you came with me, gang. You know what's going, stop playing with me.
What's good? Shalom, shalom. What's good? What's cracking? We back at it again. Yes, sir. So yeah, we back at it again. You know, we're gonna get into Deuteronomy chapter 4 real quick. Get into a breakdown of Deuteronomy 4, right? Yeah, so we're gonna check it out. So it's Lockheed is trying to make sure everything cool over here. Oh yeah, so we back. So yeah, I know you see the title. What advantage? So what's the advantages of being a Jew and keeping the laws of God, right? So yeah, we can get into it. But of course, yes, of course, giving all praises to the Most High God, Yahweh. We do so in His only begotten Son, Yahweh Shai, who the world might call Jesus Christ, right? So we're gonna get into it. I'm gonna break it down, right? Deuteronomy 4 is a good chapter, important chapter to understand, and so let's see what it say. But before we get there, let's go to Romans 3. Let's go to Romans 3 first, real quick. So, because you gotta understand, it's a question being asked, and we should know the answer because it's an open book test. Romans 1 and 3 says this. It says, so what advantage then have the Jew? So this is Paul asking the question. The same question we asking today, because oftentimes, you know, especially if you grew up in this institution of Christianity, you know, you're being told that you don't have to keep the law. You know, the law's done away with. You know, it doesn't matter, you know, if you were an Israelite or not, Jew, neither no Jew nor Greek, We all one in Christ. You know the stuff they say, right? So we're gonna, try to understand this thing. So it says this: for what advantage then have the Jew? So again, so Paul is asking this question. This question is an important question that a lot of modern day religion leaders, Christian leaders, push to the side for what they call replacement theology, right? So what advantage then have the Jew, or what profit there of the circumcision? So, what's, so important, what is so special about being an Israelite, about being a Jew, or even having the covenant, right? Being the seed of Abraham, right? And he's going to tell us the answer. Because again, like I said, it's an open book test. He's going to tell us the answers. And it says this: much in every way, chiefly because unto them were committed the oracles of God. Right? So now what is the oracles of God? The scriptures. Right? And that was given unto the Israelites. So that's the advantage that we have. That God gave us the spirit and the knowledge to understand this book. Right? Because he only gave us the testimony to understand it. Right? And we got to understand that. Real quick, just to prove that really, really fast, and go to Psalms 147 and 19. It says this. Psalms 147 and 19 tell us this: he showed his word unto Jacob, his statutes and his judgments unto Israel. So he only showed his word unto Jacob, his statutes and his judgments unto Israel. When he brought them out of Egypt through Moses, and they stood at the bottom of Mount Sinai, and they got the laws and the testimony from the Most High and from Moses, right? And if you recall, if you're familiar with that account, it wasn't no other nation of people standing with them, right? It was only the 12 tribes of Israel. So he showed his word unto Jacob, his statutes and his judgment unto Israel. He have not dealt so with any nation. And as for his judgments, they have not known them. Praise ye Yahweh, right? That's what it says. It says, praise ye Yahweh, right? So he's not dealing with no other nation. So he has not gave no other nation their, the covenant or the understanding and wisdom of this book. And unless you're willing to say that the author of Psalms is lying, because he just said he showed his word unto Jacob, his statutes and his judgment unto Israel. He have not dealt so with any nation. And as for their judgments, they have not known them. And they don't know and don't understand this book. That's why they have so many different religions created off this book. That's why Christianity alone has 40,000 different variations. Not just 40 variations, 40,000. Not just 400, but 40,000. Not just 4,000, but 40,000 different variations of Christianity. Because he showed his word unto Jacob, his statutes and his judgments unto Israel. He didn't show it to the people that follow Catholicism and the Catholic Church and Christianity and all the other stuff that they considered in, that the world religions, right? He showed his word unto Jacob, and his statutes and his judgment unto Israel. He have not dealt so with any nation, and as for his judgments, they have not known them, right? That's what it says, right? So what advantage does it have to be a Jew? Right? That's the question that our dear brother Paul is asking, and we're pondering today. Right? It says, what advantage then have a Jew? Or what profit is there in a circumcision? Much in every way, chiefly because unto them were committed the oracles of God. Right? We just read it. We just saw it. Right? That's what it says. He showed his word unto Jacob. And as for the other people, they have not known him. Right? And just one more, right? One more. It's Amos 3:2. It says, let's start at 1. Hear the word that Yahweh has spoken against you. O children of, who is this? Is it children of the world? That Michael Jackson song, we are the world, we are the children. What is it? It says, hear this word that the Lord hath spoken against you, O children of Israel, against the whole family. That means all 12 tribes. You know, like back, you know, when you were kids, you used to be ranking, how they used to say ranking back in the day. Now we say roasting or whatever, right? And you used to be like, forget you, your mama, your granny, and your whole generation, right? Talking about their whole bloodline, right? The whole seed line. So it says, O children of Israel, against the whole family which I have brought up out of the land of Egypt, saying, you only, hold on, hear the word that the Lord hath spoken against you, O children of Israel. The whole family, so meaning the whole 12 tribes, the whole bloodline, that's who he's speaking to, right? Was brought up out, was brought from the land of Egypt. We know the story. Saying, what is he saying to the whole 12 tribes of Israel? Can we identify who he's speaking with? He says, you only have I known. That's what he said. You only have I known of all the families of the earth. So now to understand this, it's like 7 to 8 billion people on the planet, right? But God is saying, you only have I known of all the families of the earth. Therefore, I will punish you for all your iniquities. So he's only dealing with us, right? And so that's just how it goes. He's only dealing with us. Whether you like it, believe it, understand it or not. That's just the facts of the matter, right? So we can get into it real quick. Salakia, real quick. Yeah, so lucky we back. But yeah, so he's only dealing with his people, right? So as we can see. So lucky. So yeah, let's go to Deuteronomy. Real quick. Deuteronomy 4. Let's start at the top. Let's start at 1. 1 second. So yeah, start at the top. It says, "Now therefore hearken, O Israel, unto the statutes, unto the judgments which I teach you, for to do them, that ye may live." Right. So he says, hearken to the statutes and the laws that he's teaching us, so that we may live. Right. So it says, "Now therefore hearken, O Israel, unto the statutes and unto the judgments which I teach you." So, if you're familiar, we're in the book of Deuteronomy. Deuteronomy means second law. Moses, is up in age, getting ready to pass. And so he's going over the law again, going over, in modern terms, the Constitution of Israel one more time. Make sure people understand the law of the land. So when they go into the land, how to act and how to behave. So, going over it one more time. Deuteronomy means second law, right? So, because they're going over the laws again. And he says, for to do them, that ye may live. Right? So, like, look, all these things I'm teaching you, the laws, how to live in the land, do it so you may live, right? So now, again, going back to those institutions called Christianity, tell you not to keep the law, right? But clearly we see that God is speaking to his people, the Black, Hispanic, and Native Indian, and telling them to keep the law, right? Because it says, for to do them, that you may live, and to go and to possess the land which the Lord God which the Lord God of your fathers given you, right? So that's the plan, right? To keep the law so we can be prosperous, we can go and be in the land of milk and honey that he done promised to our forefathers, right? So verse 2 says, And ye shall not add unto the word which I command you, neither shall ye diminish from it, right? So don't add anything to it. Don't take nothing from it, right? Very important, very important law to do and to don't, right? It's even reiterated again in the last book of the Bible, right? Right here, Revelation 22 and 18. Let's get it over here. and 18 says this. Revelation 22 and 18 tell us. It says, For I testify unto every man that heareth the words of this prophecy of this book. If any man add unto these things, God shall add unto him the plagues that were written in this book. Right? So very important. Don't add or take away. Right? And again, you have these institutions, they take away from, the Most High God by pushing these false ideologies, telling you that the people of God don't matter, blanking everybody with the Gentile term, just making everything just seem like it's just allegory and, and metaphorical, and and everything just have a spiritual application behind it, right? But not truly understanding this book, and we know they don't, because the Bible, like how that Sunday school song used to go, "'Cause the Bible tells me so. This I know, 'cause the Bible tells me so." We just read it, Psalms 147, Amos 3 and 1, all the way down, right? So we read it. So it says, let's get this too real quick. Let's get second Esdras 9 and 1. No, we don't need that one. No. All right. Yeah, no, we can hold that one. So it says, verse 3 says, Your eyes have seen what Yahweh did because of Balaal Peor, for all the men that followed Balaal Peor, Yahweh thy God have destroyed them from among you. Right? Because we have a God that fight for us. God take care of our enemies. And it says, but ye did cleave unto Yahweh your God. But you did cleave unto Yahweh your God. Are alive, every one of you, this day. And that's the thing. We hold on to the Most High God. He sustain us, keep us, right? And it says, Behold, I taught you statutes and judgments. Right? Like we just read in Psalms 147. What it says again, just go right back to it. It says, and 19. It says, He showed his word unto Jacob, his statutes and his judgments unto Israel. Right? So, like he said, and it says, He have not dealt so with any nation. As for his judgments, they have not known them. So they don't know how God really moves and how he operates. He only showed these things to his people. Right? Then one more real quick. While we at it. It says this. He only showed it to his people. And it says Amos 3 and 7. It says, Surely Yahweh will do nothing but revealeth his secrets. Hold on. Dang, your phone acting crazy. It says, Surely Yahweh will do nothing but revealeth his secrets unto his servants, the prophets. Right? So God, tells his people, his prophets, the truth, the secrets, the things that, the information that's unseen to the average Joe. Right? That's why he gave us the light, to teach. Right? That's why, it says that you should be a light to the Gentiles. It says, Surely Yahweh will do nothing but reveal his secrets unto his servants, the prophets. Right? Because he only dealing with his people, Israel. Right? It says, Behold, I have taught you judgments. Behold, I have taught you statutes and judgments, even as the Lord God had commanded me, that ye should do them. That you should, you read it right, it says, that ye should do so in the land, whether ye should go to possess it. Right? And that's what that's what we rolling with. We got laws on how to conduct ourselves. This is not like a book of religion and stuff like that, because people get so kind of like turned off or whatever, for lack of better terms, because when they hear the word Bible and stuff, or they automatically associated with Christianity and other religions or whatever ideologies, instead of understanding the book for what it actually is. It tells us right here, right, in Joshua 1 and 8, it says, Joshua 1 and 8 tells us, it says, this book of the law. So what is the scriptures? It's not some religious text, right? That is literature. It's historical literature of a culture of people and a documented account of their existence and their relationship to their God. This book of the law should not depart out of thy mouth, but thou should meditate therein day and night. Thou mayest observe to do according to all that is written therein. Right? So that's what this is. It's the book of the law that we study from and we meditate on. Like it says, that thou may observe and do according to all that is written therein, then thou make thy way prosperous. Right? So that's how we make our way prosperous. We wonder why collectively as a people, we are where we at. We still, fighting for justice in this land, right? 500 years later, still talking about no justice, no peace, right? Still subjugated to these people in various ways. And it says, for then thou should make thy way prosperous. Then, hold on. Hang on. Phone, I can pray. Go ahead. Says, then thou shalt make thy way prosperous, and then shalt thou have good success. So then that's how we can have good success as a people, when we keep these laws that God given to us, right? So back over here it says, behold, I taught you statutes and judgments, even as my Lord God had commanded me, that that ye should do in the land, rather ye go possess it, right? And that's what we do. We go, rather in the land, we go to possess it, right? Let's get this real quick. Revelation 22 and 14. And it tells us, blessed are they that do his commandments, right? So you want to be blessed, so you want to keep the commandments, right? And the commandments is not hard and stuff that you can't do, how they teach you in church. Oh yeah, nobody can do the commandments, which is a lie, because you can read this book. If you ever read this book, you will find many people kept the law, right? So it says, behold, I taught you statutes and judgments, even as Jehovah my God commanded me, that ye should do them, that you should do so in the land, whether ye go to possess it. Right? So back over here it says, over here, Revelation 22 and 14. It says, blessed are they that do his commandments, that they may have right to the tree of life. So you want to have the right to the tree of life. We know the tree of life, that represents, Christ, metaphorically speaking. Then it says, blessed are they that do his commandments, that they might have right to the tree of life and may enter through the gates into the city. Right? So if you want to enter into the kingdom, you have to keep the commandments. It's telling us that. And this is the last book of the Bible. And the last chapter. Hold on real quick. Salakia. Get this thing straight. So like. So back over here. It says, keep therefore and do them, for this is your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the nations. So God is telling us to keep these commandments and these laws, because this would be our wisdom in the sight of the nations, right? This was going to make us look like a wise nation. You know, not a bunch of niggas, you know, how they look at us now, a bunch of gang banging, drug dealing, you know, a bunch of hooligans, right? But no, wise people, right? Because it says, therefore keep them, for this is your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the nations, which shall hear of these shall hear all of these statutes, and say, surely this is a great nation, is a wise and understanding people. Because that's what we are, a wise and understanding people, right? Naturally, right? That's why we're so forgiving and so loving. Our only curse is that we have a hard time loving each other, right? We love to love everybody else. What's that song by Timbaland? Love to love to love to love, yeah, yeah. Right? But everybody else, except for each other, right? But when we begin to keep these laws, then we begin to love each other, because to keep these laws is to love one another, right? And it says, surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people. For what nation is so great, who have Yahweh so high, so nigh unto them? Right? So they're going to look at us as the people of God. They're going to see the God, you know, how God is dealing with us, right? And it says, have God so nigh unto them, as the Lord our God is in all things that we call upon him, that we call upon him for, right? So we have that connection with the Most High God when we keep his laws. Because everybody say, I got a relationship with God. That's what Christianity teaches you. I got a relationship with God. But how can you have a relationship with God if you're not keeping his commandments, right? If that's like if you work a job, and okay, you be like, yeah, I got me a job, right? I got a job, right? But you go to that job and you don't do not anything that job required you to do. You don't listen to your supervisor. You don't listen to your manager. But, you know, you say, I got me a job, though. How long do you think you can go on saying that I got me a job before you actually get fired? Because you're not listening or doing anything that the job required or what your manager or supervisor say, right? So if you can understand that, you cannot say you have a relationship with God if you're not keeping his commandments. That is Christianity talk. That is slave talk. Because Christianity is a slave religion, right? That teaches you to be spiritually servitude and to Satan, right? And not actually doing what God tells you. Because we just read it one more time. It says, behold, I taught you statutes and judgments, even as Yahweh my God commanded me, that ye should do so in the land, whether ye go possess it. Keep therefore and do them, for this is your wisdom in your understanding in the sight of all nations. Rather, which shall hear all these statutes and say, surely this great nation is a wise and understanding people. For what nation is so great, who have Yahweh so nigh unto them? As Yahweh our God is in all things that we call upon him for. Right? So they're gonna be looking and at all in wonder because the connection, right? But how can you say you have that connection if you're not keeping his laws? It says what nation this they're so great that have statutes and judgments so righteous all this law which I set before thee, I set before you this day, right? So, and that's what the people is going to be saying when they, look upon this nation, right? And again, going off how people say, yeah, I got a relationship with God, but if you're not keeping the law, you got a relationship with Satan. That's what you got. You got a relationship with yourself, because you done curated your own God in your head. Whether you like it, believe it, understand it or not, people not going to like it. It's okay though. It's the truth. Right? We reading how you get a relationship with God. Right? You get a relationship with God by keeping the commandments. Not because you believe on Jesus and you say and you go to church. I mean, Dylan Root went to church. The guy that shot those 9 black people in that church. And not only did he go to church, he prayed with them. Like after, the service finished, the Bible study, they all come together and they pray. He prayed, right? Then after he prayed, he shot all 9 of them. With many as he can. That's what he did, right? So that can't be the only measuring stick that we use to say we have a relationship with God, right? Just like if you have a disobedient child, I mean, a child that's out in the streets. I mean, a lot of times, you talk to those kids or talk to the parents, vice versa. They'll tell you, like, yeah, but we ain't cool, like, we ain't close like that. We ain't got no relationship like that. Why? Because they're not working together. They're not on the same plan. They're pulling away from each other. The rebellious child is doing what they want to do, and the parent is, standing on what they standing on. So there's no relationship there. Might be love there, but there ain't no relationship there, right? So how could you say that unless you're doing what he asked you to do? If we can understand that, then you should be able to understand, right? Let's get this real quick. Zechariah 8:23. Hold on. Let's start at 20. 8:20. It says, "Thus said the Lord of hosts, it shall yet come to pass that there should come people in the habitations of many cities." So all these people are gonna come, right? And it's a future prophecy. When we're righteous and stuff. Then it says, "And the habitations of the city shall go to another, saying, Let us go speedily and pray before Yahweh and seek the Lord of hosts. I will go also." Right? And yet many people of the strong nations shall come and seek the Lord. Shall come and seek the Lord of hosts in Jerusalem and pray before Yahweh. Right? So they're going to come, right? Because they're going to know that the people of the Lord, we back. We in charge. We running everything. How the Bible says, when the righteous is in authority, the people rejoice, right? And like the Bible tells us, Isaiah 60, that we are the light. So then tell us this. It says, thus said the Lord of hosts, in those days it shall come to pass that 10 men should take hold out of all the languages of the nation, even take hold of him that is take hold of a skirt of him that is a Jew. So meaning they're gonna, in that day, when all hell break loose, and then we got the power, yeah, and we got the power, right? Got the light, because Christ is dwelling with us, and the Most High God, is our God. We're back into that covenant, right? We're gonna have the light like Isaiah 60 tells us, right? And then because we're gonna have the light, and all the rest of the world is gonna be living in darkness, like it's, Mad Max, type stuff going on. And what they're going to do, it says, even take hold of a skirt of him that is a Jew. It says, 10 men should take hold out of all languages and nation, even take hold of him that oh, dang, a phone, why I keep jumping? Fucking crazy. Hold on. Boom. Dang, a phone. Second. Crazy. Let's go back to it though, cause hold on. Zechariah, boom, boom, boom. So it says that 10 men should take hold out of all languages of the nations, even take hold of a skirt of him that is a Jew, saying, we will go with you, for we heard that God is with you. So all the nations are going to start seeing that the Spirit of the Lord is with us. But they only going to start feeling that way, seeing that way, if we keep the commandments, right? If we do what the Most High God tell us to do. Because like it says, for what nation is so great, who have God so nigh unto them, as the Lord our God is in all things that we call upon him? And what nation is so great that have statutes and judgments so righteous, all this law which I set before you this day, right? So, and that's how the nation's going to be looking at us, right? It says, because like it tells us in verse 6, keep therefore and do them, for this is your wisdom and your understanding. So this is our wisdom and understanding. This is what keeps us wise and understanding, so we can be able to outsmart the ways of the devil. When we see these spiritual demonic energies working on the earth, we can detect it and know how to navigate through it. Don't get caught up in, all the hoopla and stuff and the devices of the devil and how he works, right? Because it says, for this is your wisdom and your understanding in the sight of the nations, which shall hear all these statutes and say, surely this great nation is wise and understanding people. For what nation is so great, who have God so nigh unto them, as the Lord our God is in all things that we call upon him for? And what nation there is so great that his statutes and judgments are so righteous in all this law which I set before you this day? It says, only take heed to thyself and keep thy soul diligently. So we got to take heed to thyself. Make sure we stand on track. Make sure we're keeping the laws of God, right? Measure ourselves. Because a lot of times people have a hard time doing what Michael Jackson told us and look at that man in the mirror, right? Because people are afraid to face what they see, right? Instead of just being honest, right? And so it says, but let's get this real quick. 1 Corinthians 1 and 30. It says, but him are ye in Christ, but Jesus, who of God is made unto us wisdom and righteousness and sanctification and redemption, right? So, like I said, so we, the wisdom that we get, from serving the Most High God, right? And like I said, so that's what the law does. Let's start at 28. It says, and the base things of this world and the things which are despised have God chosen, right? And it says, and the things which are not, to bring to naught things are, that no flesh should glory in his presence, right? So, like I said, so let's read it one more time. It says, the base things of this world, the things which are despised, God have chosen, right? So the simple things, God is a It's about simplicity. So the simple things, right? God have chosen, right? Because, a lot of people think, oh, you got to go get a PhD and go to this school and that school and get this certification and that certification. But it says, in the base things of the world, and the things which are despised. So the things that people despise, they hate what the Israelites teach, right? They despise it. And who else they hated? They hated the disciples. That's why they unalived them in very vicious ways. Christ too, So, it says, and things which are despised have God chosen. So the things that people despise, things that people look down upon, right? Look at who's those colored people, those uppity niggers. Who they think they are, right? Who told them they could be anything, right? So the world despised the Lord's people, right? And it says, God have chosen, the things which are not, to bring to naught things that are, that no flesh should glory in his presence. So those people that think they got some type of intelligence, they think they so smart, they think they know better than the prophets of the Lord, in that day, they're going to be found to be damn fools, right? Because they tell us the base things of the world. Hold up. Back to it. Gotta bear with me because I don't know why the phone jumping. It says, in the base things of the world, which are despised, have God chosen, the things which are not, to bring to naught the things that are. Right? And that's, people despise the law of God. Oh, you ain't got to keep those commandments. Oh, you don't, what you keeping those commandments for? You're a Pharisee, you this and that. Right? But it says, God have chosen, the things which are not to bring to, which are not to bring to naught the things that are. So the current understanding, the current way of how people think and about this Bible, like I said, is using the simple and the simplicity and a bunch of roughneck preacher men to push this message, to bring down the current understanding, right? Let's prove it real quick. Real quick. Do it like this. Where it at? Hold on. Let me do it like this. Hold on. Hold on. Just because this nigga phone is acting crazy. Keep jumping. Right here, Matthew 11:25. That's what I'm looking for. So it says this. It says, let's get it over here too. There you go. Here we go. So it says, so Matthew 11:25 says, at this time Jesus answered and said, I thank thee, O Father, Lord of heaven and earth, because thou hast hidden the things from the wise. So he hidden these things from the wise. People that go to those cemetery schools, I like to call cemetery school. They call it seminary school, so they say, right? But it says, I thank thee, O Father, Lord of heaven and earth, because thou hast hidden these things from the wise. Right? So these people that go into these fancy schools and get all these doctrines and scholarships and, and letters by their name and all this cool stuff, and, what it say? He has hidden these things from the wise and the prudent, and has revealed them unto the babes. Right? Even so, Father, for it has seemed good in thy sight. Right? Like it just told us. But hold on. Verse 28. The base things of the world and the things which are despised have God chosen. Yeah, the things which are not, to bring to things that are. Right? So that's what that's how he operate. Because people like to chase the fancy stuff or whatever, right? But God operate on a different frequency. It says that no flesh should glory in his presence, but of him are ye in Christ, of God, who made unto us wisdom, right? Because we get wisdom by keeping these commandments and following, the Mashiach. And it says wisdom and righteousness and sanctification and redemption, right? That's what we get. So back over here. So it says, verse 9, only take heed thyself and keep thy soul diligently, lest thou forget the things which thy eyes have seen, and lest thou depart from thy heart all the days of thy life. But teach them thy sons and thy sons' sons. So teach these things to your kids, your families. Pass this knowledge, this wisdom down, right? Don't be one of those people like, well, they'll figure it out. They, one day, they got to do their own thing, They got to make up their mind. No, you are the parent, and you tell them, hey, this is what we're doing. And this is the only thing that we do. We don't do nothing else, right? And you teach it to your kids, because this is our culture, this is our heritage. Just like the Chinese, they got their culture, their heritage. The African people, the various people over there, they got their culture. The Arabs, they got their culture, right? So this is our culture, right? That we got to understand, right? This is our history. So we teach this to our people, because we always complain about how the American school system don't teach our history. But a lot of us got our history book sitting in the living room somewhere, sitting on a shelf somewhere, sitting on the bedroom dresser somewhere. Don't even know it, right? So you teach this to your kids, right? That's what you do. It says, especially the day that thou stoodest before Yahweh thy God in Hebrew, when the Lord said unto me, gather me the people together, and I will make them hear my words, that they may learn to fear me all the days that they live upon the earth, that they may teach their children. Right? So, and that's what happened. Our ancestors stood at the bottom of the mountain and heard the voice of the Most High God. Right? And it says, hold on. And it says this, it says, especially the day that they stood before Yahweh thy God in Hebrew, when the Lord said unto me, gather me the people together, and I will make them hear my words, that they may learn and fear me all the days that they live upon the earth, and that they may teach their children. Right? So that's what we do. We teach our children this history, these stories, the stuff that our ancestors went through when we read these scriptures. And it says, and ye came to hear and stood under the mountain, and the mountain burnt with fire in the midst of heaven. and darkness, clouds, clouds and thick darkness. Right? It was a very terrifying sight when the Most High God spoke to the children of Israel. Right? And that's what made the Ten Commandments so famous or highlighted, because it's actually more laws when you continue to read after the initial 10 that you see. It's more laws. But what make those laws so highlighted and important, because those were the first 10 that the people of Israel heard Yahweh speak himself out of his mouth. And it was very terrifying and frightening. Right? Let's get it real quick. Right? It says, hold on. It says, and the Lord spake unto you out of the midst of the fire, and ye heard the voice of the words, but saw no similitude, only ye heard a voice. Right? And it was very terrifying for the people. Right? Let's get this real quick. Exodus 20 and it started at 18. Right? So now this is after the Ten Commandments done came out. So now just imagine, right? So it says, and all the people saw thunder and lightning and noise and trumpets and a mountain smoking. And when the people saw it, they moved and stood far off. So the mountain is shaking, it's smoking. So, because almost like they thinking like, dang, this thing about to erupt, about to explode. This volcano thing is acting up. I think we need to get up out of here. Right? So, and, so they, so it's very terrifying to hear the voice of the Lord, because it's thunder and it's lightning, loud commotion going on, right? Then it says, and when the people saw it, they removed and stood far off. So when they saw it, they backed up and they took a step back, terrified, right? And it says, and they said unto Moses, speak thou with us, and we will hear. But let not Yahweh speak with us, lest we die. So when they was hearing the voice of God, it was so terrifying to hear God speak, and so, just powerful, that they thought they was going to die, because the earth was shaking, the mountain was quaking, smoke billowing, a lot of stuff going on. Very terrifying. And God was just speaking the first 10 commandments, and it was very terrifying. That's why, too, when people be like, oh yeah, God spoke to me, and the Spirit came and told me this and that. Like, not really, because oftentimes, a lot of times, when you read the Bible and God come and speak to the people, the prophets, it's a very powerful, draining, thing that goes on, very terrifying. Oftentimes, the prophet may pass out. They might feel sick afterwards, a lot of stuff go on. But the way they tell it, like, oh yeah, it was just a conversation, and say, hey, how you doing? And I'm like, hey, how you doing, God, and everything. That's how they tell it, right? It don't go like that, right? These people were terrified. It says this, and it said, Moses speak, and they said to Moses, speak thou with us, and we will hear, but let not God speak with us, lest we die. And Moses said unto the people, fear not, for God has come to prove you, and that his fear may be before your face, that ye sin not. And the people stood far off, and Moses drew near into the thick darkness where in the thick darkness where Yahweh was. So Moses went into that big billow of smoke and fire and stuff that was coming from around the mountain, and and he went to go get the rest of the law. So that's why the Ten Commandments stand out, because that was what the people heard God say himself. Then the people, it was so terrifying and frightening that they like, hey, well, we understand what God's saying, we get all of that, but he's kind of loud, and kind of spooky and terrifying. Why don't you go talk to him and you tell us what he said, So that's how that went, right? So you gotta understand that. So that's what he's reaccounting to the Israelites. Like, you remember that day when I gave you the law, and how terrifying, and how y'all was acting like a bunch of little punks, right? That's what he's saying, right? So then it says, And he declared unto you his covenant which he command you to perform, even ten commandments, and he wrote them upon 2 tablets of stone. And the Lord commanded me at that time to teach you statutes and judgments, that you may do them in the land whether ye go and possess it. Take ye therefore a good heed unto yourselves, for ye saw no manner of similitude on the day that God spake unto you in Herbert, but in the midst of the fire. So meaning God he didn't speak like, like how, those people be trying to sound all wise and talking parables and, don't be really saying nothing. So when God was laying down the law, speaking to the people, he spoke it very plain, right? So they can understand and hear it. Although it was terrifying and frightening, because you got a picture like this, understanding like, say like you are wrong as all of ever, right? You're just so wrong, very wrong. You're guilty, guilty, guilty. Then somebody you love and respect is talking to you about how wrong and guilty you are, and you can't do nothing but just sit and listen to the stuff that you have done or the stuff you've been a part of. So, and then it's coming with so much authority behind it and conviction, right? It will make you feel a certain type of way. So the Most High God, as he laying these laws down to the people, and remember, they coming out of Egypt. So, so some of this stuff is convicting, it's like, dang, it's just like somebody telling you about yourself and it cut you right to the core. So the people, like I said, so very terrified. Then you got the whole thunder and lightning, earthquake, everything, right? Very crazy. So, moving on. And it says, and the Lord commanded me at that time to teach you statutes and judgments, that ye might do them in the land whether ye go to possess it. And it says, take ye therefore good heed unto yourselves, for ye saw no manner of similitude on the day that the Lord spake unto you in Huram, but in the midst of the fire, lest ye corrupt yourselves and make graven images in similitude of any figure. So God, purposely just let them hear his voice with all power and majesty as he was speaking with them, right? Because he knew if they had seen some type of form of him, they would have tried to create something and worship that form and call it Yahweh. And God is like, yo, you can't create anything of me because I'm just that dude. You know what I'm saying? There's nothing you can make that can represent me, right? God would be I'm trying to think of who's that that Dwayne Wade statue. Yeah, God would be mad if God was Dwayne Wade. He'd be mad. The statue is bogus. God don't deal with this, the whole imagery stuff, right? So he didn't give them any similitude or any visual for them to actually create an image of him, right? And it says, lest ye corrupt yourselves and make a graven image, the similitude of any figure in the likeness of a male or female, likeness of any beast that is on the earth, in the likeness of any winged fowl, fowl that is in the air, right? So now this is important, people, right? So God is sanctifying the Israelites, telling them, yo, this is who you're supposed to worship. Don't worship this and don't worship that. And the reason why I didn't show you how I look, because I don't want y'all to be creating images of me and bowing down to that and worshiping in that, right? That's kind of crazy. That's a little sicko. It's like a little psycho girlfriend that, want to, sleep in your t-shirt at night and cry yourself to sleep because you broke up, or you went on a vacation and you're gone for a while. It's kind of weird. You're getting weird. That's how God looking at it, right? If you can understand. It's getting weird. So don't be making images of me, you know what I'm saying, and worshiping that, don't do that, right? So, let's hold on real quick. So, don't be following different gods and all that stuff and worshiping, and stuff, right? And it says, this is Deuteronomy 18 and 10. It says, there shall not be found among you anyone that maketh his son or daughter pass through the fire, or useth divination, or observer of times, or enchanter, or witch. Right? So, and those things dealing with other false ideologies and religions and stuff like that the Most High God tells us not to get into. Right? And how this stuff affects us in a modern sense. It says, there should not be found among you anyone that maketh his son or daughter pass through the fire. So now, in ancient times, people used to follow this guy named Moloch, this guy. And to serve Moloch, you used to have to sacrifice your infant child, to Moloch. And they would do it to either have a great harvest for their harvest, or, to even have more children, But it's for the fact of multiplying, for their harvest and actually in fertility also. Right? So now they used to do that, right? And chiefly for fertility, for harvest reasons, for they can have a nice harvest the next year, right? So now, how that play out in the modern world? Abortions, right? Now, back then, people were sacrificing their kids for they can have a better year, more, finances, a great harvest. And a lot of people end up getting abortions because they want to have a career. They want to make sure it don't mess up their life and screw their whole life up. So they think. So they do that. So not understanding that you're following and keeping the old ancient practice of Moloch worshiping, right? And essentially following other gods, right? Now, although they dress it up the way they dress it up, use fancy terminologies the way they use it, and it come across as, you're doing something benevolent that's separate from, your spirituality or how God feel about anything, and we trick ourselves in this stuff because a lot of times we don't follow the laws that God gave us, We put that second or don't even think about it because, again, Christianity tells us not to. And we put man's law above God's law. Like, that is the law that's going to get us into heaven. If I wear my seatbelt every day, if I just stop right here, or if I do this, so we treat man's law like that's what's going to get us into heaven versus what God tells us to do, right? And it says, where that? It says, there should not be found among you anyone that make his son or daughter pass through the fire. So again, in modern sense, that would be the abortion clinics that, I don't know what it is now, but last time I checked, to a tune of 500,000 of our people were being killed yearly. 500,000, right? It's crazy. That's, killing off your own army. That's crazy. But it says, or that use divinations, and or people that like to speak to the spirits and stuff like that, say they can talk to spirits and or all that stuff, right? And it says, or observers or times, people that get into astrology and stuff like that, trying to, what's your zodiac sign? And, oh, you are this or that. Oh, you like to do this. Oh, you are Cancer. Oh, so you do this or that, right? Not, it sounds fun to the people that don't know, but not understanding that you following the old ancient custom of astrology that God tells us not to do. And Because the difference, because we, dealt with the stars and stuff like that. And I tell people too, I'm like, it's like a gazillion stars in the sky. And the constellations that people choose to use, it's the Greco-Roman constellations that they use. That's the current one that people, go by. I'm like, not knowing that we had our own set of constellations that we, looked at and saw and viewed, I'm like, if you're going to at least, get into your own culture, constellation and views of the stars, you not only are you off, you way off by, following Romans, with the Romans, how they view the sky, So, and you go around calling yourself all these different zodiac signs after Romans, right? Not understanding we had our own zodiacs. Every nation of people got their own zodiac signs, in case y'all don't know. I know some people, I'm trying to help somebody out somewhere. Every nation got their own zodiac, right? So, and there's a difference between astrology and, astrology and astronomy, right? I think one is the study of the stars, and one, you read the stars, right? There's a difference. So it tells us, boom, boom, boom. So yeah, it says, observer of times or enchanter, someone that, want to call on spirits doing a little seance type stuff, or a witch. And sadly, a lot of our black women is into, witchery, or call themselves being witches. Even though they try to make it seem like, oh yeah, it's just about nature and stuff like that and blah, blah, blah. But still witchery and demonic, right? In a sense, right? Although, some say, well, yeah, we're not casting spells and doing all that stuff. They try to dress it to make it seem like, it's cool though, right? But the Most High said it's not. And it says, lest ye corrupt yourselves and make a graven image and similitude of any figure of likeness of male or female, likeness of any beast that is on the earth, and likeness of any wing or fowl that is flieth in the air, right? It says, the likeness of anything that creepeth on the ground, the likeness of any fish that is in the waters beneath the earth, right? So no graven image. So that's the point. Pay attention, right? Because a lot of people don't like, they don't understand this, right? So tell us this. Hold on. Let me get it over here too. So tell us this. It says, lest thou lift up thy eyes into heaven, and when thou seest the sun, the moon, and the stars, and even the hosts of heaven. Right? So if you start following the celestial bodies in the sky, the sun and the moons and the stars and the quasars, right? And start making religions out of that, right? Like a lot of religions do. Like, Islam used the crescent moon, right? And a star. A lot of, religions use the stars and, the celestial bodies. The Greeks and the Romans, they named their gods after the planets in the sky and stuff like that, because Mars appeared to be red, in a night sky. They named that, the god of war. You know what I'm saying? So they do these things, right? But God telling us not to get into that stuff. Don't do that. That's not what we're supposed to do, right? He's going to tell us. He's going to break it down. He's going to make it clear. He says, lest thou lift up thy eyes unto heaven, and thou seest the sun and the moon and the stars, even the host of heaven. So now the host of heaven is talking about, on a spiritual side, you have lesser gods, lesser deities that the Most High God created. These, lesser beings, that God created to govern different regions of the planet and different regions of the thing. You read about that in Zechariah, different places, right? So, but what he say? So he don't want us to follow these other gods that these other nations, follow, and that they made up or created in these other deities. He says, unless thou lift up thy eyes into heaven, and thou seest the sun, the moon, and the stars, and even the hosts of heaven, and should be driven to worship them and serve them. So now we see these things, right? And we're like, oh, okay, let's follow that. Let's incorporate that. Let's do what the Hindus do and have this God for this and that God for that. And this God over here, he does this. And that God, he's cool too. So just bring him, right? So it says, and be driven to worship them and serve them, which the Lord thy God hath divided. What is this important? Got to slow it down. It says, which the Lord thy God hath divided unto all nations under heaven. So what are we saying here, right? What is he saying here, should I say? What is God saying? He is saying that he had created these other entities, these other, things for the other nations to follow, right? That's let them do that. They follow that stuff, Let them have their Thor. Let them have their Zeus. Let them have their Krishna. Let them have their Buddha. Let them get that. You know what I'm saying? It's cool, And it says, and should be driven to worship them and serve them, which the Lord thy God hath divided unto all nations under heaven. So he gave them those things to follow. But the Lord have taken you and brought you forth out of the iron furnace, even out of Egypt. So he took us out of the land of Egypt. Because if you understand, there's a lot of people, Egypt had a lot of nations enslaved. But God said, let my people go. He says, and even out of Egypt, to be unto him a people of inheritance, as ye are this day. So he called us to be his people, right? That we are this day, right? Let's prove it a little further more. Deuteronomy 7 and 6 real quick. It says, for thou art a holy people unto the Lord thy God, unto the Lord thy God. The Lord thy God hath chosen thee to be a special people unto himself, right? So he made us to be a special people unto himself above all people that are on the face of the earth. So he separated us for himself, right? He wanted us to be his people, right? Because it just told us, God has divided unto all nations under heaven. So he gave those other nations their gods to follow, their culture, their lineage, and what to follow. Because if you remember after the Tower of Babel, before the Tower of Babel, should I say, it was all one nation, one people, one tongue. Everybody spoke the same thing. They believed the same thing. But then God said, just put some variety in this thing. Just split this thing up over here. Break it up, right? So he divided that, right? Let's get that real quick. Deuteronomy 32. It'll tell us like this. Deuteronomy 32 and 8. It says, let's start at 7. Remember the days of old. Consider the years of many generations. So we have to think and ponder on these things. Consider the years of many generations. Because a lot of times we want to toss the past away. Like, oh, that was old. That's the past. But God says, continue. It says, consider the years of many generations. And ask thy fathers. So that's what we need to do. Be asking our elders. But the jacked up part is, our elders are corrupt and they follow the ways of this world and follow Esau and his philosophies, so they can't tell us nothing, right? Our elders have failed us. That's why the Most High God is raising up a new, branch of people, a new wild olive, branch that's growing on that tree, right? Because the old is, is finished, right? But we are to ask our fathers, right? Ask our ancestors. Ask those that know the truth, right? Of the days of old. And it says, when the Most High, it says, remember the days of old, consider the years of many generations, ask thy fathers, and he will show thee, thy elders, and they will tell thee. So the elders are the men of the Lord, right? Ask them about the truth. Ask them about the past. Right? And we should be able to ask our elders, period, about the past and the truth, but they don't want to hold, they don't want to teach the youth, right? It's a big generational gap between the youth and the elders, and there's no connection. They don't want to teach us, right? And it says, when the Most High divided the nations, their inheritance, because again, just like in the days of old, it says, acts about the days of old, during the time of Noah, he divided the nations. And it says, when the Most High divided the nations, their inheritance, when he separated the sons of Adam. So after the flood, he separated them because he gave them different languages, right? The Tower of Babel, we know about that. And he set the bounds of the people according to the number of the children of Israel, right? In other translations, it says the children of God, which is speaking of, those spiritual entities that we talk about that he, have governed these different regions and nations of people. Let's prove it. Ecclesiasticus 17:17. For in this division of the nations, because we do know he divided the nations, right? Because we just read it. And then if you're familiar with the Tower of Babel, he divided the nations. For in this division of the nations, the whole earth, he set rulers over every people. So every group of people had their own customs, their own culture, their own cosmology, their own way of doing things, their own way of seeing the world. That's why the Romans have their zodiac signs with their Capricorns and their Sagittarius and so forth, right? And then the Israelites have their zodiac signs as well, right? In other nations, the Chinese got their zodiacs, the year of the dog and the rat and the cat and shit like that, right? So it happens. For this is the division of nations of the whole earth. He set rulers over every people. But Israel is the Lord's portion. We keep reading that over and over again. Like we read already. That, he had showed his word unto Jacob, his statutes and his judgments unto Israel. He have not dealt so with any other people. Why? Because he's not their God. He gave them gods to worship. That's why when you go dig into archaeology, go to these different places around the world, be digging in these different places, you can find little figurines in their story of cosmology and who this God is, right? Why do you think we know about Greek mythology? Why? Because they had their own custom and culture that they follow. Why do you think we know about Roman mythology? Why do you think we know about Buddha and all them other people, right? Because that's what they did. And then archaeologists, they dug and they found these artifacts, and they say, hey, this is what these people followed, right? Just like the Bible tells us. When the Most High divided the nations, their inheritance, when he separated the sons of Adam and set bounds according to the people, according to the number of the children of Israel. For the Lord's portion is his people, Jacob is his lot, his inheritance, right? We belong to him, right? His people. You gotta understand that. So back over here. So it says, but the Lord hath taken you and brought you forth out of the iron furnace, out of Egypt, to be unto him a people of inheritance, as ye are this day. Furthermore, Yahweh was angry with me for your sake, and swear that I should not go over Jordan, and that I should not go into the good land which Yahweh thy God had given thee for an inheritance. But I must die in this land. So again, this is the book called Deuteronomy, the second law. So again, Moses is on his way. He's passing. He's getting ready to pass. So he's just going over the law one more time. He's getting Joshua right, because Joshua is going to take over, and he's making sure that people understand the law and what to do before they go into the land and how to live, right? And it says, take heed unto yourself, lest ye forget the covenant of the Lord your God, which he made with you, and and make you graven images, make you graven image, or the likeness of anything which the Lord thy God hath forbid thee. For the Lord thy God is a consuming fire, even a jealous God. You gotta understand, God don't play that, right? So, like I said, so gotta get out of these false religions. It says, so when thou shalt beget children, the children's, and ye shall have remain long in the land, and shall corrupt yourselves and make graven image or likeness of anything, so that so do evil in the sight of Yahweh thy God, to provoke him to anger. So like I said, when we do these things, it provoke God to anger, right? And you don't want to provoke God to anger, because he is the wrong one to get mad. If you understand any of the history of our people in the last 500 years, then you should know he is the wrong person to get mad. So right here, Deuteronomy 30, right? And 1. It says this. Hold on, let's read it one more time before I get there. It says, I call heaven and earth to witness against you this day, that ye shall soon utterly perish from off the land, whereunto ye go over the Jordan to pass it. Ye shall not prolong your days upon it, but shall utterly be destroyed. Right? And that's what happened because we did not keep the law. If you familiar with the history of the people, they broke the law as soon as they could, And so Deuteronomy 30 tells us this, 30 and 1. It shall come to pass, and all these things come upon thee, the blessing and the curses, which I set before thee. Thou shalt call them into mind among the nations, whether the Lord thy God hath driven thee. So we're calling these things into mind, whether the Lord thy God hath driven thee, because it just told us over here, if we paid attention, it told us like this. It says, when thou beget children and children's children, and ye shall have remain long in the land, and shall corrupt yourselves and make graven images, because that's the history of our people. We end up making, falling into idolatry, and it says, or likeness of anything, and shall do evil in the sight of thy God, to provoke him to anger. I call heaven and earth to witness against you this day, that ye should soon utterly perish from off the land, whereunto ye go over unto the Jordan to possess it. If ye should not, and ye should not prolong your days upon it, but be utterly destroyed. Right? So now we reading this, right? Because this is chapter 4. So now, as we're scattered in these lands, and God telling us, like, yo, you're gonna mess up, and when you mess up, right, just know why you messing up, because of your sin and you following after other religions and false ideology. So then we're scattered throughout all four corners of the earth, right? So we're at this point right here where it says it shall come to pass, when all these things are come upon thee, the blessings and the curse which I have set before thee, thou shalt call them to mind among all the nations, whether the Lord thy God have driven thee. Thou shalt return. So we're going to start calling these to mind. We start remembering, like, dang, we are the Israelites. Dang, we should keep the commandments. Dang, like, maybe, there's something to this stuff. Maybe I need to get out of this false religion and get into the truth of the scripture. It says, and shall return unto the Lord thy God, and shall obey his voice according to all that I command thee this day. Because what Christ says, man should not live off of bread alone, but by every word that come out, that proceed from the mouth of God. And thou should, and thou and thy children with all thy heart. So not only do you need to get your stuff together, you need to make sure your kids is following the right path. Teach them the customs and the culture, so they can carry it on, instead of doing Christmas and Thanksgiving and all these other American holidays we like to immerse ourselves in, because they know that stuff quite well. Teach them the holidays that God wants you to do. We have a holiday coming up now. We got a few couple coming up. I know Day of Atonement coming up, Feast of Tabernacle, one of my favorite holiday outside of Passover. So teach them those holidays, right? So, but we don't know those holidays, right? When that time come around, people are going to be getting ready for Thanksgiving dinner. They'll be getting ready for Christmas, instead of getting ready for the high holy days that God set up for his people to do, so we can be blessed as a people. Instead of having your Christmas tree catch on fire and burning down the whole damn house, right? Instead of having people getting shot and stabbed over Thanksgiving dinner, right? Keep something holy, right? And shall return unto the Lord thy God, and shall obey his voice according to all I command thee this day, thou and thy children with all thy heart and with all thy soul. Right? That's what we need to do, with all our heart and all thy soul. Then the Lord thy God will return thy captivity. So wherever we're scattered to, whatever parts of the world we're taken to, he's going to bring us back. And I have compassion upon thee, and I will gather thee from all nations, whether the Lord thy God hath scattered thee. Right? That's the plan. Well, no matter where we at. And if any of thy be driven unto the outmost parts of heaven, from hence will the Lord thy God gather thee, from hence will he fetch thee. So no matter what part of this big blue green planet we at, we can be far off in the Pacific somewhere, far off in a remote island that have a plane haven't, you haven't seen a plane in damn near about 3-4 years haven't flew over your head because you're so remote, right? Stuff like that, right? He's going to get you. He's going to find you and bring you back to the land, right? And it says, and the Lord thy God will bring thee into the land which into the land which thy fathers possessed, and thou shalt possess it, and he will do thee good and multiply thee above thy fathers. And the Lord thy God will circumcise thy heart and the heart of thy seed. That's the new covenant you read about in Hebrews 8:8, and also Jeremiah 31:31. Circumcise thy heart and in the heart of thy seed, to love the Lord thy God with all thy heart and with all thy soul, that thou mayest live. Right? That's what we're going to be doing, right? When in that day. And it says, and the Lord thy God will put all these curses upon thy enemies and upon them that hate thee, which persecute thee. So when we start to come back to these laws, statutes, and commandments, so all the heartache and all the bull that we've been through as a nation, going to start to reverse and start to put it on these other nations, that put us in this condition that, cause harm to us. So that's why too, when you look on the news, you see certain things happening around the world. You see God judging this place, globally. Because globally, collectively, the Lord's people is waking up in the last days just like he said they would. Right? And as we're waking up and more people are getting sealed, that 144,000 is getting sealed, more prophecy is going to happen. More judgment is going to take place on this planet, right? Because God is judging this world for what they have done to his people. Whether you like it, believe it, understand it or not, right? So that's what's happening, right? Back over here. So it says, and the Lord shall scatter you among all nations, and shall be left few in number among the heathen, whether the Lord thy God shall lead thee. So that's what happened to the real Israelites. They were scattered among all the nations, right? And we wasn't going to nations and controlling their banking systems and insurance companies and loaning people and stuff like that. We wasn't doing things like that, right? We wasn't funding and financing slave ships and stuff like that, right? We wasn't doing that. We didn't have a slave plantation that was so big, the the Portuguese country was too afraid to come and break it up because it was as large as a country. Because we didn't have a plantation the size of the state of Indiana. We didn't do those things. But it's a certain group of people that did, the ones that had a little curly stuff hanging from the side and little coasters on top of their head. They probably did some stuff like that. But not the real Lord's people, right? They wouldn't have did nothing like that, right? So, back over here, Deuteronomy 28 and 64. Tell us this. And the Lord will scatter thee among all people, from one end of the earth even unto the other. So that's what happened to the real people of God. We were scattered, violently, not by choice, violently through the Arab slave trade, the transatlantic slave trade, and war, conquest, right? Very violently, right? It says, the Lord will scatter thee among the nations from one end of the earth even unto the other, and there thou shalt serve other gods. So when we went to these other nations, we start serving other gods. But those people with the little coasters on the top and the little swirls hanging from the side, the little ribbons hanging from the side, they didn't go to other countries serving other guys and being, they still, if you ask one of them, we kept our history for 1,000 years and we can go back to the first, to the second temple. That's what they say, right? You can't mess with this at all because the Lord's people was taken into slavery, right? And it says, the Lord will scatter thee among all people from one end of the earth even into the other, and there thou shalt serve other gods, neither thy fathers have known. So we serving other gods. Those other people are not serving other gods. They're serving Satan, who they always have served, but they're not serving other gods. It says, whereas neither thy father have known wood and stone. Right? So that's what the real people of God is doing. Right? Serving, from wood and stone. Right? Let's get Jeremiah real quick. Jeremiah 17 real quick. So Jeremiah 17:4 tells us, and thou, even thyself, shalt discontinue from thy heritage. So, God's telling Jeremiah that you and the Israelites is going to discontinue from your heritage. What is your heritage? Your culture, your language, the way you speak, the way you dress, what you eat, your land, all that stuff. That happened to the real Israelites. That didn't happen to the curly haired people with the plates on top of their heads, the little saucer plates on their heads. It didn't happen to them, right? It says, thou shalt discontinue from thy heritage that I gave thee, and I will cause thee to serve thy enemies in the land which thou knowest not. For ye have kindled a fire in my anger which burned forever. Right? And that's what's going on. You right? So that's what happened to the real people of Israel. Their heritage got stricken from their language, their tongue, all that stuff, right? They don't speak that, the original, the language that they're supposed to speak. They speak in another tongue, right? That's what happened to the Lord's people. Let's get this real quick. Let's get Luke 21 and 24. And it tells us, it says, and they should fall by the edge of the sword. And that's what happened in 70 AD. This is a prophecy when Jerusalem finally got taken down by the Romans. It says they should fall by the edge of the sword because the Romans came in and they devastated and destroyed everything. And it says, and shall be led away captive into all nations. That's what happened to us, right? This is a prophecy that Christ has given and letting them know what's going to happen. And that's what happened to the people. We were led away captive into all nations. It says, and Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled. Right? So now the people that's in the land right now to this day, because the time of the Gentiles is not fulfilled yet, because Christ is not here and his kingdom is not on the planet, and he's not the king of the world and the king of the universe ruling everything. So that means whoever is in Jerusalem right now, they are not who they say they are. Right? And it says, and there shall be signs, there should be signs in the sun, in the moon, and the stars, in the earth, and distress of the nations with perplexity, in the sea, and waves of ruin. Right? So, that's what we're seeing now, because the real people are not in the land. Right? So, back over here. Boom, boom, boom. Let's get a second. Let's get a second theologians. Boom, boom, boom. What I want, 2 and 2. Okay, hold up. Okay, now we don't need that one. Boom, boom, boom. So then, so moving on, but we can, let's keep going. Then it says, but here's from, hold on. It says, and there ye shall serve God's work of man's hands, wood and stone, which neither see nor hear nor eat nor smell. But if from hence thou shalt seek the Lord thy God, thou shalt find him, if thou shalt seek him with all thy heart and with all thy soul. And that's what we need to do. We need to be seeking the Most High God with all our heart and all of our soul, to find the Most High God and get out of these false ideologies and religions that we find ourselves, trapped in. Right? Then, boom, boom, boom. It says, immediately after the tribulation of those days, like a phone keep jumping. It says, immediately after the tribulation of those days, the sun shall be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars should fall from heaven, and the powers of heaven shall be shaken. All right, so now again, this is talking about the fall of Jerusalem when we was taken out, and when it's talking about the moon and the sun should be darkened, it's talking about the wisdom and knowledge that was that was erased during that time, because the Romans, they burnt everything, they burnt the city, right? And then again, like we read in Jeremiah, that we would be discontinued from our heritage, right? And that happened to us over time. That's why we have European and Hispanic names, right? And or should I say European and Latin names, because Hispanic, Latin, same thing, right? So, and that's why we have these names. Go back over here. It says, boom, 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 and when thou art in tribulation, and all these things are come upon thee, even the latter days, even thou, it says, in the latter days, even if thou turn to the Lord thy God and shall obey his voice, right? So we gotta once we start seeing these things happening to our people, these signs that is happening to our people, then we should know we need to come, turn to the Lord, right? And, come back to the Most High God and keep these laws, statutes, and commandments in the faith, in the Mashiach. And it says, but when thou art in tribulation and all these things come upon thee, and that's what's going on. Our people are in tribulation, whether you understand it or not, even in the latter days. And we are living in the latter days, and our people are in tribulation. Even thou turn unto Yahweh thy God, and shall be obedient unto his voice. For the Lord thy God is a merciful God, and he will not forsake thee, neither destroy thee, nor forget the covenant of thy fathers which he has sworn unto them. Right? Because again, like he said, he's going to bring us back from, no matter where we're scattered to, right? And bring us back into the land. That's what he, told us, that's what he said he's going to do. Right? Let's get this real quick. That's why it's important that we do, keep the faith and understanding the prophecies of this book, right? This is a Baruch 2:30. It says, "For I knew that they would not hear me." And that's what's going on. Our people are very hard-headed, right? Don't like to listen to the truth. We think we know it all. It says, "For I know that they would not hear me," because this is a stiff-necked people. But in the land of their captivity, because that's where we at, in the land of our captivities, in these different places that we're scattered through, because of slavery, they shall remember themselves. And that's what we're doing. We are remembering ourselves and coming back to the law, statutes, and commandments, understanding that we are the people of this book when we read it, right? "For I knew that they would not hear me, because they are stiff-necked people." We are a very stiff-necked, hard-headed people. Think we know it all. The stiff-necked people, but in the land of their captivity, they shall remember themselves, and shall know that I am Yahweh their God. For I will give them a heart. And the ears to hear, right? And they shall praise me in the land of their captivity, and think upon my name. And that's what we're doing. We are thinking upon his name. Like, dang, we are his people. He is our God and none else, like it tells us, right? That's what we're doing. It says, "For ask now the days that are past, which were before these, since the days that God created man upon earth. Ask for from which one side of heaven unto the other, whether have been seen any such thing as great thing is this, or have been heard like it." Right? And that's the thing, right? And it says, did ever people hear the voice of God speaking out of the midst of the fire, as thou hast heard and live, right? So again, that's one thing we can bet on and hang our hat on, that we are his people, that the miracles and the prophecies that we read about this in this book, they belong to us, and we can brag on this, because you cannot read this Bible and see that God did any meaningful, any act of love and kindness for any nation outside of Israel. You cannot read this book and find that, because that's not what this book is about. Because, like we already read, that he gave those other nations their culture, their heritage, their gods, their cosmology, their way, right? That's why, again, you go to these different regions, you dig in the ground, you're going to find what these other people used to worship and follow, right? So he didn't give it to them like that, right? That's why I tell us this over here in Romans. Let's get it over here. That's why I tell us in Romans 9:4, right? Romans 9:4 tell us like this. It says, let's start at 2. Romans 9:2. "I have great heaviness and continual sorrow in my heart." This is Paul speaking, in case you don't know. And he's saying that, he's reflecting on the life of Christ and what he did for Israel. And he's like, man, I wish I can do something like that to make these people follow and understand the truth like Christ did. You know, I wish I can do something similar to that, right? So he's saying, for I wish that I have great heaviness and continual sorrow in my heart. For I wish for I could wish myself were accursed from Christ for my brethren, for my kinsmen according to the flesh, right? So So what he's talking about is he wish he can go through these things for his brethren, his fellow Israelites according to the flesh, right? Bloodline, we same tribe, right? And why do he want to do this for his Israelite people? Why is it so important for the Israelites to do this, right? You know, and for him to do this for the Israelites, for them to understand their connection to their God, right? Because like we started off before, it says, what advantage then have the Jew? Or what profit is there of the circumcision? Much in every way, chiefly because that unto them were committed the oracles of God, right? So just get a little understanding. It says, according to the flesh, who are Israelites, to whom pertaineth the adoption, because we already understood that to them were given the oracles of God. So what did that mean? Who are Israelites, to whom pertaineth the adoption. The word pertain means to belong. Something belongs, something becomes a possession. So the adoption, how people say we can be adopted into Christ, but the so-called apostle to the Gentiles, that's what they call him, he's telling you people who are Israelites, to whom pertaineth the adoption, the glory and the covenants and the giving of the law and the services of God and promises. So that all belongs to the Lord's people, the Israelites, right? We gotta understand it, right? That's why it's telling us, for the Lord thy God is merciful; he will not forsake thee, neither destroy thee, neither forget thy covenant of thy fathers, which he has sworn unto them. Right? That's what's going on. Right? And it says, for as now in the days that are past, which were before these, says the day that God created man upon earth, as from one side of heaven unto the other, whether there be any such thing, this great thing that is, or have been heard like it. So again, God only dealing with us. We the only one that can lay claim to these miracles and these promises and all the special things that happen in this book, because it's only for us. Or have God say to go and take him a nation from the midst of another nation by temptation, by signs, and by wonders, and by war. And that's what he did, right? And he went to another nation and took a nation out of that nation, because he said, let my people go, right? And it was other nations that Egypt had enslaved. It wasn't just us, but God said, let my people go. Now, of course, when the things start going, when as we're leaving, the Bible tells us about the multitude that left out with us, the mixed multitude. But then the Bible also tells you that those mixed multitudes, they died off in the wilderness, right? So let my people go, right? And it says to take him a nation from the midst of another nation by temptation, by signs, and by wonder, and by water, and by war, and by the mighty hand, and stretched out arm, in great terrors, according to all that Yahweh our God did for you in Egypt before your eyes. Unto thee it was showed that thou mayest know that Yahweh is He. Yahweh is Yahweh. He is God. There is none beside Him. Right? And that's the thing, that He is God and there's none beside Him. Right? And it says, out of heaven He made thee hear His voice, that he might instruct thee upon the earth and show thee his great great fire, and thou heardest his voice out of the midst of the fire, right? And that's what they did. They heard the voice, right? It says, therefore, it says, and because he loved thy fathers, therefore he chose their seed after him, and brought thee out of the midst of in the midst of his sight. It says in the midst of his, hold on, brought thee out of his sight with his mighty power out of Egypt, right? And that's what he did. He took his people out of Egypt, right, to drive out nations before thee, greater and mightier, to bring thee says greater and mightier than thou, to bring thee, to give thee their land for inheritance, as it is this day, right? That's what he did, right? Because like it says in Jeremiah, that thou art my battle axe, with thee I will break in pieces the nations, right? And that's what he used, the Israelites to conquer the land of Canaan, right? So it says, therefore now this day consider thy heart, that the Lord thy God, he is God in heaven above. He is God in heaven above, and upon the earth beneath there is none. There is none, right? And that's what we got to understand, that there is none, right? And that's why it tells us this. It says, this is Deuteronomy 6:4. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God is one, right? And thou shalt love the Lord thy God with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy might, right? That's how we do this thing, with all our soul and all of our might, because our Lord our God is one, right? That's why it says, now therefore this day consider it in thy heart, that the Lord thy God, that the Lord, he is God in heaven above, and upon earth beneath there is none else, right? Because he is our God. It says, thou shalt keep therefore the statutes and commandments which I command thee this day, that it may go well with thee and thy children after thee, and thou mayest prolong thy days upon the earth, which the Lord thy God hath given thee. Right? So that's the thing. You want to prolong your days on the earth that God given thee. Keep the laws of God. Keep the faith, and God will keep you. Right? So that's why it's so cool to be an Israelite. That's what it says. Why it's so special, because we have the law. We have that closeness to God when we keep that law, and when the other nations see us keeping the law, that's going to make us, look very wise and very all-knowing and special, just like God created us to be. We already special and powerful, even on a low level, because a lot of these nations, they copy us, they follow us. A lot of the stuff we create is popular, hip-hop, our entertainment, our inventions, everything that we do dominates, the world. Just that they don't respect us as the Lord's people. But in that day, they will, right? So that day is coming soon, right? So, to a future near you. So I'm going to say shalom, peace. Till next time, we out. Shalom.